This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And welcome to it, my friends. It is Monday here on the program. Thank you for stopping by. Greatly appreciate your support, and thank you for dialing it in. It's going to be a busy week for sure. You know, what a messy weekend it was. Let's start with that real quickly. Every year, the same thing. Oh, my gosh, it's snowing in April. Yep, just like it did last year and the year before that, the year before that. Yeah, we get those sloppy, wet snowstorms in April that sometimes stick for a day or two, like it did here in southern Michigan before it was gone. And then you have the ones that it snows and it's gone in 2 or 3 hours. Anyhow, just a sloppy, cold, icy mess. That was true for a lot of us over the weekend, still true for some of us farther to the north. And, well, that's just the way it's going to be. It's that kind of weather pattern. In fact, it's pretty cold out. It'll stick this way for a couple more days, I suppose, before spring finally gets here with gusto. Don't worry, it's going to be the greatest fishing season of all time. I predict that right now. Of course, I predict that every year. Because you never know. I could catch the greatest fish in my life this summer. And I look forward to it. And so should you. Look forward to me catching the greatest fish of my life. Mm-hmm. The hotline number, if you'd like to get involved, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. On the program today, Professor Allan Saxe will be here because it's Monday, and he's always here on Mondays. He doesn't catch fish, by the way. You know, like Brad Pitt said in the movie A River Runs Through It, you don't trust a man who don't fish. Agreed, meaning Allan Saxe is suspect. Economist Charles Wheelan is the best-selling author of Naked Economics. He'll be here to talk about the challenges financially for the next president. Robin Lott will be here telling us how to save money. How to save money for our kids going to getting some education. And then Jeffery Allen Ford will be here. Jeffery Allen Ford, Genius of the Year for America, which is North and South America, by the way. He is autistic, has Asperger's syndrome. April is World Autism Awareness Month, if you didn't know. April, World Autism Awareness Month. We're going to talk about that. And then Tim Staudt's going to join us live from London. Tim Staudt's going to join us live from London to talk about the national championship and opening day in baseball, which today is. Today, it reminds me of a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It does. Well, how is that, Steve? Well, pretty simple. It reminds me of Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny. It's rabbit season. It's duck season. It's rabbit season. It's duck season. And then finally, you know, this is all going on. Elmer Fudd getting so confused. Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny argue it out while readjusting which way the befuddled hunter is pointing his shotgun. You know the one. Finally, in desperation, Elmer Fudd cries out to a passing game warden, "Gee, Mr. Warden, what season is it, Wheelie?" And the warden looks at Elmer sternly, says, "Why, everybody knows it's baseball season." And so it is. By the way, it's going to feel a lot like winter here. But baseball season is upon us. The Tigers will start on the road, but it'll still be brutal on the diamond for their home opener this Friday against the Yankees. A wise man once told me playing baseball in Michigan in April is stupid. And so it is. All right, officials in Virginia have announced funeral details for the state trooper Chad Dermeyer, who was killed in the shooting of that Greyhound bus station in Richmond Thursday afternoon. He will be laid to rest tomorrow. Dermeyer, who is from Michigan, Spent many years as an officer for the Jackson Police Department. WLNS TV talked to Police Chief Matt Hines about his fallen friend. It's clip one. Go.
He's one of those type of employees that you just dream of getting. He's a quick study, hard worker, pleasant, easy to approach, really loved his job.
Deputy Chief Elmer Hitt went on to say, he also commented on his fallen friend from WLNS as well. Go, number two.
But when you hear it's somebody you knew, and especially somebody you worked with and was from your department, it's very shocking, and it still is. It takes some time to really sit in.
And the shooter, by the way, a guy who celebrated the idea of killing cops on his social media sites and so forth, celebrated killing police officers, and then there's this, they were doing a training exercise at the Greyhound bus station. That's all they were doing, training at the Greyhound bus station. This guy freaks out. Of course, he's a convicted felon, not allowed to have a gun by law. Starts shooting. Trooper Dermeyer is killed at the time. You know, just a sad story, no question about it. Anyhow, those funeral arrangements are for tomorrow. And we will, of course, keep you up to speed on that. All right, so let's turn to the political circus that continues on. A lot to cover in this realm, so we'll have to cover this for the next couple segments here. But Republican presidential candidate John Kasich says he thinks he has a good chance at a contested convention this summer. I believe that a convention will look at somebody like me, and that's why I think I'm going to be the nominee, so said the Ohio governor on ABC's This Week. Kasich said he expects to continue gaining momentum and picking up delegates until the convention. Now, tomorrow is the Wisconsin primary. John Kasich's chance of winning there is 0. His chance of winning the nomination by getting enough delegates, 0. In fact, mathematically speaking, even after Wisconsin, the chance of anybody winning besides Donald Trump on the Republican side, well, the math just isn't there anymore. The math just isn't there. In the rolling poll from Reuters, Trump now at 45%, Cruz at 31%, Kasich at 17%. But here's what, even if Ted Cruz wins tomorrow, which is likely, he's ahead by like 10 points in Wisconsin, he would have to take something on the line of 90% of the remaining delegates to get there, and he will be mathematically eliminated from this race in about 2 weeks, maybe 3. 2 or 3 weeks, he's out. He has no chance of going anywhere in 2 or 3 weeks. All right, so, and here's another side note. Hillary Clinton and Bernie have been arguing about debates in the state of New York, which comes up next, right? It's a big state, winner take most primary for the Republicans. Hillary wanted to have a debate tonight. Yeah, in the state of New York, you know, where the national championship for basketball is being played tonight. She wanted to have it tonight. North Carolina, Villanova, by the way. Back in a moment on a Monday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All right, welcome back to it. It is Monday here on the program. If you haven't heard about this story, you're going to, because this is one of the most fascinating little, it's dirt. People busted, people outed, lights shining in places that no lights have shined before, being called the Panama Papers. This is from Fusion, a website called Fusion. So if you want to go look up and find out more, but a treasure trove of 11.5 million leaked internal documents from the Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca showing how hundreds of thousands of people with money to hide used anonymous shell corporations across the world. More than 100 media organizations dove into the files, including Fusion here that I mentioned, found drug dealers, arms traders, human traffickers, fraudsters, and big-name politicians and their families. For example, Mauricio Macri, the president of Argentina, who as president has vowed to fight corruption, is listed with his Italian tycoon father, Francisco, and brother Mariano as a director of Flegg Trading Company. Flegg was created in the Bahamas in 1998, dissolved in January 2009. A financial connection Macri did not disclose on asset declarations when he was mayor of Buenos Aires. His spokesman said he didn't list Flegg Trading as an asset because he had no capital participation in the company. The company used to participate in interests in Brazil was related to the family business group. This is why Mauricio Macri was occasionally its director, he said, reiterating that Macri was not a shareholder. Okay, maybe. Ayad Alawi, the former Iraqi prime minister, a wealthy Iraqi exile who helped lead the push for the war with Saddam Hussein. Alawi returned to Iraq to serve as prime minister in 2004, served as vice president as recently as last year. He had all sorts of dirty fundings in places called Foxwood Estates, Moonlight Estates, IMF Holdings. Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson, if I got that right, good luck to me. The Prime Minister of Iceland, a radio personality. Now, here's where a little bit of coolness happens. A radio personality who led the Progressive Party to victory after the financial crisis of 2008. I only say he won because he's on the radio. Maybe I'm next. Millions of dollars in bonds and major banks, failing to declare his ownership in this country called Wintris. King Salman, I can't say it all, but the King of Saudi Arabia. These words are long. All right. King Salman bin Abdulaziz bin Abdullah Rahman Al Saud, the King of Saudi Arabia, through a series of British Islands shell companies, British Virgin Islands shell companies, has at least $35 million worth of hidden assets there and a luxury yacht the length of a football field. The president of the Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, on here. Rami and Hafez Makhlouf, the cousins of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, all of their information released. Kojo Annan, the son of ex-United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. This whole list is staggering, to say the least. The Prime Minister of Pakistan is here. Arkadian Boris Rottenberg, lifelong billionaire friends of Russian President Vladimir Putin, all of their secrets exposed. Another friend of Vladimir Putin. And here's one that I find interesting. Ian Cameron, the father of David Cameron, of course, the father of Great Britain's current conservative prime minister. He died in 2010 after amassing a fortune of smart investments. According to the documents, Cameron helped create and develop Blairmore Holdings in Panama in 1982 and was involved in the investment fund until his death in 2010. Blairmore has valued at $20 million in 1998, was promoted to investors in brochures, not liable to taxation on its income or capital gains. The promotional literature added that Cameron's fund will not be subject to United Kingdom corporation tax or income tax on its profits. More shell corporations, more games, more cash, and all worldly. These are, if you ever read anything about Bilderberg, these are the kind of folks that are all hanging out there. Seriously. These are the kind of folks that are all hanging out at Bilderberg, and they've all, anyhow, 11.5 million pages of these documents, dirty little secrets flying all over from this Panamanian law firm. I'm going to tell you, a lot of folks out there whose money has been exposed, and they are not impressed. Something else this morning that I think is of note and worthy. Colorado's Democratic governor, John Hickenlooper, said it's a great idea if they suspended the standard. He's referring to the Environmental Protection Agency and its new overreaching regulations on ozone levels. I mean, just with the background ozone emissions, if you're not going to be able to conform to a standard like this, you're leaving the risk or the possibility that there will be penalties of one sort or another that come from your lack of compliance and it's impossible to comply. That's right. That's right, Governor. Welcome to the new Democratic Party, of which you are a proud member. The EPA's new rules are meant to tighten ground-level ozone levels from 75 parts per billion to 70. The agency arguing that the ozone standards are crucial for protecting public health, which is nonsense. If you didn't know this, here's a fact that doesn't get much publicity. They talk about how many kids are getting asthma because they're sick and the atmosphere and global warming, blah, blah, blah. Since we've begun to aggressively reduce all emissions across the planet and make the air cleaner, more pure, if you will, asthma levels in America are on the rise, dramatically so in many areas. So what is the correlation? The air is getting cleaner and asthma levels are on the rise. Why is that? I certainly don't know, but I make you aware of it because it's a curious fact. So when they tell you, oh, we're doing it to save the kids, no, not so much. This hour of the Steve Gruber Show brought to you by the Michigan 529 programs, making sure your kids and grandkids get the education they need. To learn more, go to SaveWithMI529.com. That's SaveWithMI529.com. It's Monday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I done said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line. I've been on the right trip, but I must have used the wrong car. All
right, welcome back to it. It is 33 after the hour. It's Monday here in the program, which means it's time for Professor Allan Saxe to bring his circus into town. Allan, Professor, welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you.
So, what's big this week? Let's see. We got this Wisconsin primary where it looks like Bernie Sanders could notch win number 6 out of the last 7. At some point, don't the Hillary people have to say, no, wait a second. We're supposed to just walk away with this. And he's 6 out of 7 for Bernie, who I just listened to some tape saying that bread lines and so forth in Nicaragua are a good thing because it shows that, that people are sharing the food with the poor people, where in other countries, rich people eat all the food and poor people starve to death.
Is that what he said?
Swear to God, I just watched it.
Oh, my God.
It's a clip with John Stossel from his program over the weekend. They found this videotape of Bernie Sanders praising bread lines because that's a good thing. I mean, how do you even respond to that?
So you have a choice between close to being a radical socialist. Maybe he doesn't like the word communist, but that comes pretty close in some ways, maybe.
Well, the guy honeymooned in Russia, so, Soviet Union, whatever.
And then there's a crook who he's running against.
Well, the fact of the matter is, she, on these policies, she's not far off. Bernie says, I want free college for everyone. She just says, I want free tuition for everyone. What's the difference?
You're exactly right. I've said the very same thing. They've said the same thing, but in a different way. He says he wants free college tuition, and she said she's going to eliminate all the debt for college students. And then in regard to medical care, he says everybody ought to have free medical care, and she says she's going to build on Obamacare. So you're right, there's a distinction probably without much of a difference. The Wisconsin primary tomorrow, it looks like Bernie's going to take it. It's going to be close, but Bernie will take it. The crucial state is New York, and if Bernie does very well in New York, he may not win, but if he comes very close to Hillary Clinton, it'll be a great embarrassment.
I don't know how close she's going to come. What the weird thing was, some polls show him as close as 10 points. Another poll showed her up by 48.
Oh, my God.
I mean, but I'm like, okay, now wait a second. So they have no idea what's going on there. But Donald Trump's up by 40 points anyhow. So we've got Wisconsin tomorrow where there's, 49 delegates, I believe. But even with those, and Ted Cruz is likely to pick that up, but it doesn't matter. Because by 2 or 3 weeks from now, he's still going to be mathematically eliminated after Trump wins up in New York, because honestly, it would take quite a change of trajectory for that to change.
But then there's California.
Ted Cruz has no path.
And California, though, could be, I think California is proportional. And,
doesn't matter.
If Donald Trump does not do real well in California, he may be shy of the magical 1,237 delegates, which, by the way, is 50% of all the delegates plus one.
Yeah, he might be
shy. They get to that number. he may be short of that. And if he is, it's headed toward an open convention, a brokered convention, whatever one wants to call it. And Governor John Kasich is ready for that. He's just loving
Kasich
that.
is an idiot at this point. I mean, come on. What the hell is he saying?
His scenario is, as you know, is that there'll be an open convention. And in fact, yesterday he said there's going to be an open convention, and that'll be, and he said it sort of sarcastically, of course, it'll be so much fun, because he believes the convention will eventually turn to him, even though he's only won one state so far, and that some people are already coming up with a dream ticket with John Kasich and Marco Rubio. It may sound strange, but there's Florida and Ohio, two very critical states.
Yeah, here's the thing about Kasich. He can't win mathematically. By the end of this month, or possibly sooner, Cruz can't win mathematically. So the only reason they're there is to try to prevent Trump from getting 1237.
Exactly.
It's unprecedented for the most part in my lifetime for somebody to stick around, even though they have no chance of winning, just to, nick off a couple of delegates here and there. And it makes it look like the system is rigged. Now, it makes me wonder what Ryan Priebus and Donald Trump talked about at the end of last week when they got together, surprising for that surprise meeting. But there's some sort of unity. Let's make peace. Something is going on.
Oh, I agree. I think there's something. That was an interesting meeting last week with the Republican National Committee. And Reince Priebus, of course, was there. But the National Committee was there on the Republican side. And I was curious what was said. Donald Trump didn't give any inkling. He just said everything is fine, and everybody reported unity and all that kind of good stuff. But I think that the establishment, and not just the establishment, but the news media, and the news media makes or breaks a campaign, as everybody knows, they're really unloading on Donald Trump. Last week with Chris Matthews' interview, by the way, Donald Trump was off by even having that interview with
That's what I said. Here's the thing. Why would anybody?
That's right. Why would anybody do that?
Right. Why would any Republican go on?
That's right. I would love an interviewer. If we're going to be fair in this election cycle, if Chris Matthews interviews Donald Trump in his machine gun fashion, and you know what I mean by his machine gun fashion. Somebody listening may not know what I'm referring to. But Chris Matthews doesn't let his people even take a breath. He'll say something like, okay, tell me, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Yes or no? And he goes like that constantly. Just doesn't give anybody even a chance to express themselves. Okay, that's okay. Let's have Rush Limbaugh or somebody like that interview Hillary Clinton.
Never happen, exactly.
It would never happen. Hillary Clinton is not going to do it. And
my point is,
Hillary Clinton is not even going to debate the Republican nominee in the fall.
It's
She's
possible.
not going to do it. She's been very hesitant to even debate Bernie Sanders anymore. And
you don't think so? No, hold on. If she did not debate Donald Trump, her own people would go berserk.
I don't know. I don't think they would, because she's going to argue, I don't want to get down there with him. I don't think she will. I think she'll stay away from him. In fact, I think she'll stay away from Ted Cruz if Ted Cruz gets the nomination. She doesn't like this. She wants to be crowned, coronated. And that's not happening, as the script is not being exactly followed. So I don't think she will. I'm surprised that she doesn't want to debate Bernie Sanders anymore. Bernie Sanders is driving her nuts. And if you look at some of the comments that Mrs. Clinton has made, she is really getting mad. She's really getting mad. And I'm thinking about, there was a campaign rally that she had, and a reporter comes up to her and asks her about campaign contributions and some things that Bernie Sanders said about her. And boy, she explodes and, shakes her finger at the reporter, and a lot of the video caught that, and it was not good. And she may do that in a debate as well.
Now, hold on. And in fact, Alex, we've got that. It's clip 8. This is where it was a Greenpeace activist,
right?
Talking about her taking donations from
oil
industry. So hold on 1 second, Professor. Do you have clip 8, Alex? Yeah, go ahead and play that. We'll get there.
Thank you for tackling climate change. Will you act on your words and reject fossil fuel money in the future in your campaign?
Yes, I do not. I have money from people who work for fossil fuel companies. I am so sick. I am so sick of the Sanders campaign lying about me. I'm sick of it.
Anyhow, you can hear the music.
I am so sick sick and tired of hearing about that. That's
yeah,
exactly
I'm so
what
sick
she
and
said.
tired of the Bernie Sanders campaign lying about me. She just has a moment where she goes right over the edge.
That's right.
Yeah, anyhow, hold your thought right there, Professor.
Okay,
We'll go over the edge in a second here. It's Monday here on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right. Keep reading about this. I wrote about this some time ago. Take a quick detour here with Professor Allan Saxe in the program. As you look at the continuing economic problems around the world, which are many, in Europe and Japan, their central banks are in negative interest rates. Now, for example, if you had $200,000 in the bank and you had a negative interest rate of 1%, then you would have to pay the bank $2,000 each year to hold on to your money. So at some point, people are going to go, now, wait a second, why would I do that? I'd rather just hold on to the cash. The problem is, if people start pulling their money out and want cash, there's only a fraction. There's only a fraction of the cash, actual physical cash on the planet to cover all the deposits. It's not possible. Creating a problem. And then you've got the idea that being pushed now that certain kinds of currency should be banned altogether because it'll stop crime, which is exactly what I told you they would say. I told you this a long time ago in op-ed pieces and so forth. They're going to try to ban cash and say, well, it'll stop crime. It'll help the criminals. No, it'll help further control of the government over you and I and our neighbors. Professor, the first push is to get rid of the $100 bill. And this push is coming all over from Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, putting a piece in the Washington Post here just recently, pushing to eliminate the $100 bill because that will take a bite out of crime, which is complete garbage.
Yeah, that is scary stuff. I'm one of the few people in the world that has no credit cards whatsoever. I just deal with a little bit of cash, not a lot, just a couple of dollars every once in a while, and that's it. No credit cards whatsoever. I tried to play big shot too often many, many, many years ago, taking everybody out to eat, and just at the end of the month getting the bill. So no credit cards whatsoever. And I think you're exactly right. They want to make this a cashless society and think it's going to be better for everybody. But what it really means is, of course, more government control. Every single thing we do will be traced.
Make no mistake, this is a form of capital control. See, the problem is if you get rid of all the $100 bills and so forth, you'll make it harder for people to withdraw money from the banks that they don't have anyway.
Exactly. By the way, Donald Trump yesterday, or I think it was an interview with Bob Woodward that was written about in the Washington Post, if I'm not mistaken, and he's been criticized for saying this. He said there's going to be a huge recession, and everybody's beating up on him and saying, well, he said that because he's a businessman. He's the only one that could get us out of it. But there's been lots of economists and financial advisors in the past months or years, both here and abroad, that have been saying much the same thing, that our debt is unsustainable, that there's been so many things going on economically, that negative interest rates are propping up things. The Federal Reserve is propping up our economy here in the United States. And Donald Trump is not the only person that has talked about a very severe recession right over the hill. But he was beaten up on that yesterday, and I think unfairly, because a lot of people are saying, well, he was saying that to benefit himself. No, I think he's in probably pretty good company as well.
Yeah, I think he's probably in pretty good company. But this Larry Summers, this Lawrence Summers, if you will, former economic advisor to President Barack Obama, because
former president of Harvard.
Yeah, and real economic gurus. These guys are real geniuses running the American economy to $20 trillion in debt. And well, if we ban $100 bills and 500 euro notes, then we're going to stop crime, which is complete garbage. I can assure you that crime existed long before cash, and it'll exist long afterwards.
And you're right. I don't think it's so much for crime. That may be part of it, But I think it's also in favor of just more government control over knowing what we do every minute. And by the way, that already goes on today. We have a society, if you deposit or take out, I think, so much money from a bank in cash, that has to be reported.
That's right. If you break $8,000, I believe.
That's right.
If you take out more than $8,000 or deposit more than $8,000 in cash, I think the IRS gets a phone call, and Homeland Security might as well.
So already our society, our cash is looked at very skeptically. And
but it's a matter of control.
Yeah.
You see, because cash is like the Achilles heel of the economy. The banks can't control the cash. The government can't control how the cash moves.
And it's too bad, even if it's done with some good intentions in mind.
There is no good intention.
Why do the rest of us have to suffer for a few criminals out there, and yet we do?
There is no good intentions. What do you? I'm sorry, Professor. Did you hit your head on the way out of bed today?
I'm giving the government the benefit of the doubt.
What is wrong with you?
I know, but you're right.
I think a lot of you, and I know you're smarter than that.
I shouldn't do that. You're exactly right.
Yeah, come on. I mean, it's about. If you look at the EPA, it's about control. You look at the IRS, it's about control. You look at controlling the water, the food, the supplies, and now just control the money and everything else to go with it. It is about control.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is about controls. They use the issue of crime or whatever. And just to make things more convenient for us, they're going to get rid of cash, So I'll be stranded out there on the corner if they get rid of cash, because I have no credit cards whatsoever, and I'm such a, I guess I'll use that word, Neanderthal. Although the Neanderthals, by the way, people are beginning to believe they were not really as dumb as we think they were. But to use that old expression, I'm a Neanderthal. I don't understand all the apps on people's phones and everything like that. And I have to have friends help me with the apps a lot. But anyway, I'm struggling out there in a very high-tech society, and I'm out there in the wilderness saying, wait a minute, I have a dollar bill still in my pocket.
Yeah. Good luck with that, because you're not going to have much left. The cash, they're going to come after the cash. I've been predicting it for a very long time. They're going to get there. They're going to say, well, it's to solve crime. You can't steal the old lady's money.
Or terrorism.
Yeah.
It's also being used in regard to terrorism.
Oh, sure.
By the way, one other quick item.
You got about 10 seconds.
A little bit off the side, if you have a minute.
10
yesterday,
seconds.
here in Arlington, Texas, we had something called WrestleMania. And they had 101,000 people at the stadium here in Arlington, Texas, the Cowboy AT&T Stadium. And
gotta leave it there. Next time, Professor.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it off.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right. Just a little catch up here, because some people apparently have bought into this. But there's a really, I don't know. There's a picture going around on Facebook of a humpback whale off the lighthouse in Grand Haven. Extremely rare. Can't believe this happened. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can't believe the post is dated April 1st either. Alex. Some people were susceptible to this sort of thing. Here's just watch your mouth. Here's Alex gets all excited. He points this out to me, and I said, whales can't live in the Great Lakes. They have to have salt water to live. They eat krill, for Lord's sake. A saltwater shrimp. What are they going to eat? Come on. But here's another one. Grubhub, the nation's leading online and mobile food ordering company, has announced a new product extension that will make it easier for millions of people nationwide to catch a ride. The new offering is called Gruber. As well it should be. It marks a new area in ride sharing, olfactory delight, efficiency, and transportation magic. It will allow people who love the smell of food and new cars and the delight of a car showing up the moment they need transportation to hitch a ride with Grubhub's restaurant delivery service. It's Grubhub meets Uber, and therefore you get, say it with me, Alex, Gruber. This article also posted on the 1st of April. I think it's a great idea, though, that Grubhub drivers would transport you around. And what a marketing name that is. Grubhub meets Uber, and therefore you get Gruber. Whew. And to think it's only Monday. We have a whole week to go, my friends. A lot of work to do here. So let's go ahead and get right back to the actual work of the day. So is Hillary Clinton running to or from Bernie Sanders? If Bernie Sanders wins tomorrow in Wisconsin, it will mean that he has won 6 out of 7. He's won 5 out of 6 right now. It looks like he's leading in Wisconsin by 3 or 4 points. Bernie Sanders has a very good chance of picking up his 6th win out of 7 contests, and he might actually be competing and being competitive in the state of New York, which is not good for Hillary, of course. Madam Secretary doesn't like this. And as the professor just said, he doesn't think that she'll debate at all this fall. She'll have to. There is no way on God's green earth they will let her get away without debating. I mean, come on. I would find that hard to believe. So, we'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, President Barack Obama says suggestions from people like Donald Trump, and not people like Donald Trump, specifically Donald Trump, that South Korea and Japan should develop nuclear weapons shows a clear lack of understanding of the world. Obama took questions at the conclusion of a nuclear summit and had this to say. Clip 7, go.
They tell us that the person who made the statements doesn't know much about foreign policy or nuclear policy or the Korean Peninsula or the world generally. It came up on the sidelines. I've said before that, people pay attention to American elections. Even in those countries that are used to a carnival atmosphere in their own politics, want sobriety and clarity when it comes to U.S. elections, because they understand the President of the United States needs to know what's going on around the world and has to put in place the kinds of policies that lead not only to our security and prosperity, but will have an impact on everybody else's security and prosperity.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, of course. And here's something else that happened over the weekend that I find interesting, to say the least. Megyn Kelly, who, Donald Trump has had this ongoing war with, the war of words, ever since last August, and the debate where he said she asked an unfair question, which she did not. But he has, responded like a 5th grader ever since to that particular question about how he treats and speaks and talks about women. I was surprised when I saw this because of how complimentary Megyn Kelly really was of Donald Trump and how effective he is on the campaign trail. You need to hear this. Megyn Kelly from Fox News about her feud with Donald Trump. It's clip 12. Go.
Has anything about this campaign season made you want to throw up your arms and say, politics has gone crazy in America?
I've had the same feeling. And I think one of the unfortunate things we've seen this go-round is the coarsening of the culture. We've seen it in our politics in 2016. And listen, it was never a Tea Party.
But no one has seen it like this year with the kind of name-calling that has existed.
Well, and I think this is where, Trump, if he could pull himself back in, just somewhat, would be so effective. He's already been so effective. He could be so much more effective.
Why did he start? Does it all go back to a question in August of 2015?
Yes, it did, clearly, because Trump and I really didn't have a relationship at all prior to that.
Because some think about this and they look at it and they say, why her?
I think it's very clear to him that he cannot control the editorial on my show or from me in a debate or other setting.
Just that. That's all it is.
I wouldn't want to speculate beyond that.
This conversation airs on Sunday. If on Monday Donald Trump says, I want to come on your show, would you say, you're welcome? Come on, we have a spot for you?
Absolutely.
And there you have it. Of course she'd have him on. If Donald Trump goes on Megyn Kelly, and maybe that's the plan. I mean, Donald Trump can look at her ratings and realize that she's beaten Bill O'Reilly a handful of times, over the last year, ratings-wise, on given nights and so forth. She's giving Bill O'Reilly a run for his money. Him calling her a lightweight in the Senate, it's garbage. People watch Megyn Kelly because, generally speaking, she's pretty straight. She's reasonably, asks pretty tough questions, doesn't let people weasel, Republicans or Democrats. And each one of them knows if Donald Trump comes on to her program, it'll be a ratings giant. So the smartest thing to do, if I were in the Trump campaign, is feed this feud a couple more times. Maybe not as severe, just a little couple of, crumbs, tidbits. And then when you go to Cleveland, or just after you get the nomination potentially, you go out and you spend an hour with Megyn Kelly where you apologize and you pull back, but you have a conversation, a real conversation, because the ratings will be off the charts. I'm sure that's occurred to everybody inside the Trump train. 14 after on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, 18 after on this Monday, and welcome to it. Man, I'm going to tell you what, the home opener for the Tigers come this Friday against the Yankees. Yeah, the Yankees are in town. The ever-hated Bronx Bombers will be here. Pinstripes and all, but it's going to feel like winter. So on Saturday in the morning, it was still pretty decent here in southern Michigan. And my neighbor watched this guy for years. He is very good, very busy guy. He's a farmer. Very busy guy, but he always makes sure his lawn is mowed, and he's got a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it. There's probably an acre and a half, maybe 2 acres of lawn in and around his home, his farm buildings, his everything, right? So he's out there on the zero turn getting after it, mowing his lawn. By that afternoon, that lawn's under about 3 inches of heavy, wet snow. And I'm thinking, well, that's Michigan. Mow the lawn in the morning, shovel the walk in the afternoon. I mean, there you go. And that's just one of those crazy days. It certainly was the 2nd of April. So the Tigers' home opener against the Yankees coming on Friday. It could be a lot like winter. If you're heading, here's a little freedom check for you. A little freedom check for you. And here's what we're going to be doing, by the way, going forward here on the program in the future. At the end of the program, at the end of the third hour every day, we're going to spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about America. What's great about America? Because I think we lose track of that. I think we lose track of the fact that, America is the greatest nation in the history of nations, because you hear all this negative, and even though you try to fight back, you need some reinforcement. You need some help. I'm going to do that for you. It will be music some days. It'll be a history lesson some days. It'll be a conversation some days. It might be talking about Yellowstone National Park, the world's first national park, created by an act of Congress on the 1st of March, 1872, for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. Yeah, 1872. You know who the president was when the first national park was created? How good are you? Ulysses S. Grant. Good answer. At any rate, we might talk about that. We might talk about putting a man on the moon in July of 1969. We might talk about what we've done with Motown. We might talk about inventing the microwave or the television or the internet. We can do all of these things. But we're going to talk about America and why America's great people. And why American people have always been the most generous, wonderful people on earth. And we're going to do that at the end of the third hour every day here. It'll be kind of like your little primer to head out to work with a little bit of pep in your step. And say, well, did you know this? Or did you know this? Or here's a little fact for you about America. Great. And you know what? I'll take suggestions from you as well. Go to the Facebook page, the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page, and say, hey, you should mention this about America. And it could be about Michigan, like Henry Ford, for example, who paid the incredible wage of $5 a day to his employees, black or white. He didn't care. If you gave him an honest day's work, you got $5, which was a tremendous amount of money in the day. Now, he didn't care what race you were, as long as you work ethic, you see. So we can talk about just incredible things. Excuse me. And that's going to be coming every day. What's great about America. We'll get a theme song for it. And in fact, today we might just come up with that theme song for it and work with you. But if you're heading to Europe to escape the nannying rules on smoking, drinking, eating, vaping, well, the Czech Republic might be the place for you. The Czech Republic is the freest country in Europe when it comes to choices people can make about what, where, and when they consume their favorite vices, according to a new Freedom Index released by the European Policy Information Center, Epicenter, it's called, and the Institute of Economic Affairs. The Nanny State Index rates all 28 states of the European Union by how free their citizens are to eat, drink, smoke, and vape. Let's party. Party on, Garth. The index is comprised of 3 categories: alcohol, nicotine, and diet. All the categories are weighted equally at 33 1/3%. Nicotine split into 2 equally weighted subcategories, tobacco and e-cigarettes, each with an equal weight. Epicenter judges different policies based on the limit of consumer freedom and scores them accordingly. These policies include raising prices, stigmatizing consumers, restricting choice, inconveniencing customers, advertising bans, and reducing product quality. These measures all hurt a country's score on the index, thanks to taxes on candy, soda, alcohol, and tobacco, an outright ban on e-cigarettes and happy hours. Finland has the dubious honor of being the biggest nanny state in Europe. Taxes on candy, soda, alcohol. Gee, sounds like Bill de Blasio. It must be of Finnish descent. Yeah, Finland. That sounds like a fun place. An outright ban on e-cigarettes, an outright ban on happy hour. No wonder they're so morose in Finland. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go there for any reason, no. No chance. Finland, you are off my list. There'll be no Finnish vacation in my future. Let's see here. The United Kingdom, Britain, ranks 3rd on the list due to its extraordinarily high taxes on alcohol and cigarettes. And so there you go. But the Czech Republic, if you want to party on, dude, the Czech Republic is where you want to be. And when building a new home, Greenstone's who you want. Your options should be wide open. And with Greenstone, you can choose to pick up the hammer or let someone else do the heavy lifting. Our construction loans are designed to fit your needs, from do-it-yourself projects and fully contracted to home sites on acreage of any size. Greenstone offers competitive rates with low down payments. And with 31 Michigan locations, they are just a short drive away. To learn more, visit greenstonefcs.com. Greenstone Farm Credit Services, your custom home lender. And don't forget to tell them Steve Gruber sent you. It's Monday on the program. Good to have you along for the ride. We'll be right back.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Well, a young man ain't got nothing in the world these days.
It is Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. I appreciate you joining in. You know, this lagging and lagging economy and this nagging and persistent problem we've had for such a very long time. I mean, how long has this recession hung around? They try to tell us it's all over, it's all good, everything's fine. We have something on the order of 90 million Americans, able-bodied adult Americans, not working, and they want us to believe that the unemployment rate is 4.9%. I'm sorry, does this say stupid on my forehead? I mean, come on. We have 90 million Americans not working. We have wages that have remained flat or declined. We have the lowest percentage of home ownership in a very long time here in America. Some sectors hit harder than others. Those at the lower end of the economic scale doing the worst. Other problems, we could go into, but bigger problems on the way because we have negative interest rates across Europe and Japan. The Fed considering it here for us here in America. This is not a lot of good news on the economic horizon. Joining me to see if I'm right or wrong, Charles Wheelan, an economist, is the best-selling author of Naked Economics and Naked Statistics. He teaches public policy at Dartmouth. And Charles, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you.
So, all right, I mean, there's some things that are pretty obvious to me. You're an economist, however, so I'm trying to figure out where I'm right, where maybe I'm missing something and need to know more. Give me an overall 30,000-foot view of the American economy right now before we look elsewhere.
Well, I think there are two ways to look at it. One is the long-term trend, which is, are we becoming more productive? Are people within the economy more able to participate, and so on? And that's not a particularly optimistic scenario. We've got a lot of people who are not as skilled as they need to be to participate in an economy that's moving towards technology and so on. Our college attainment rate is kind of flat. We still have a shockingly high school dropout rate. So a lot of the folks whom you alluded to in the beginning who are unemployed or stopped looking, I mean, that's the way you can reconcile a low unemployment rate with the fact that a lot of people aren't working. That's not a terribly good prognosis in the long run, and we're not necessarily investing as a society to make ourselves more productive. Then there's the short-term fluctuations, which is to say, okay, around that trend, are we operating at the speed limit? That's not so hot either. I mean, that's why you're seeing negative interest rates and a lot of slack in the economy. So neither the long-term nor the short-term situation is particularly encouraging at the moment.
Wouldn't we be better off? I mean, I've read this in some places, so I'll pose the question to you. You're an economist. Would we have been better off, or would we be better off now to stop this so-called quantitative easing, stop the nonsense about, negative interest rates, and just let the economy adjust, make its correction?
I think we actually might have been much, much worse off, particularly in the immediate aftermath of 2008. As we get further and further away from the crisis, it's more and more debatable. But in 2008, we had a situation where panic was begetting panic. You obviously had a lot of rotten financial institutions that had loaded up on bad debt. People borrowed stuff they couldn't pay back. There was a lot of rot in the system, and it's always sensible to kind of let it play out, both because it will heal itself in the long run and because you don't want people who've made stupid decisions to be rewarded by the system. On the other hand, what happened in the immediate aftermath of 2008 is all that rot was infecting institutions that were otherwise healthy. And the actions of the Fed, and that's kind of what I've written about in Naked Money, the third in the Naked series, was to save the solvent institutions, to feed liquidity to the system, and that took extraordinary measures. That was the nature of quantitative easing. So now I think we can debate about what the Fed should do, but in the crisis, I think by and large the Fed operated pretty well.
Well, here's the bottom line from where I stand. We're on the line with Charles Wheelan, economist, author of Naked Economics and Naked Statistics. Sure, we did quantitative easing. We did these stimulus bills, trillions of dollars pumped into the economy for shovel-ready jobs. It created no jobs, really. We have an unemployment rate that's 4.9% that nobody actually believes because it's a U3 number, and Bill Clinton changed from U6 to U3 to make it look better. We're almost $20 trillion in debt, with no real plan to pay that off in less than 10 years. Interest on that debt will be the third biggest item on our federal budget. And yet you think that quantitative easing was a good idea, even though it what can we say that it did? What can we actually say this accomplished this and this? Because I must be missing it.
Well, what you're missing is the counterfactual. So what we don't know is what would have happened in the absence of that kind of intervention. One signpost would be the Great Depression. If you look back to 1929, when you had a stock market correction that was relative to what we saw in 2008 benign, and then it was aggravated through failing banks and all kinds of other things, you get to an unemployment rate that's around 25%.
But hold on. We wouldn't have had failing banks because of safeguards put in place after 1929. So it's not a fair comparison to say you would have had the same thing because we have the FDIC and so on and so forth that protects the banks against that sort of failure. Right or wrong?
Correct, except what happened in 2008 was that we had the repo market and a whole bunch of the investment banks, a whole bunch of financial institutions that were outside the net of the commercial banks. So the FDIC did exactly what it was supposed to do. Individual savers were not rushing to their banks to get out demand deposits. But the so-called shadow banking system, so all these other institutions that are kind of quasi-banks, were the ones that were at risk. So we really needed some kind of protection beyond what the FDIC could do, and that was a lot of the responsibility that the Fed took on.
Well, it's not the responsibility of the American government to bail out the banks. It's not.
It is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a quasi-autonomous institution that it really is the bank of America's banks. It's a membership organization of commercial banks, and the Federal Reserve is responsible for the stability of the banking system and the stability of the currency, both of which required action post-2008.
And would you call the banks stable today? I mean, here we are going into negative, the Fed considering negative interest rates. Japan and Europe already in negative territory for their interest rates, meaning if you have, for example, if you had $100,000 in the bank and you have a negative interest rate of 1%, that you pay the bank $1,000 a year to hold on to your money. Who's going to do that? And the answer is not many. And so therefore, if people want to pull out their cash, that'd be a great idea, except that there isn't enough cash on the planet to cover the deposits in the banks, not even close, which creates a whole world of other problems. Yes or no?
This is a crazy situation, and I do think we have to worry about the unintended consequences. You kind of hit on two things. One is negative interest rates, which is just a bizarre situation where you're loaning people money, whether it's banks or central banks, and expecting to get less back, which makes no sense in the long run. But then you also, at the outset of the question, alluded to about the ongoing stability of the system. And it's not clear whether we have solved that problem or not. We fixed or tried to fix the instabilities of 2008. We layered on lots and lots of regulations. But what we've learned is that every crisis is slightly different than the last one. It's not obvious that we have made the system more stable.
It's not obvious we've accomplished much at all. We've accomplished increasing the American debt by trillions of dollars. We've done that pretty successfully, again. But hold your thoughts right there. We're on the line with Charles Wheelan. I'd like to hold you through the break here. Charles Wheelan, the best-selling author of Naked Economics and Naked Statistics, teaches public policy at Dartmouth College. And we'll continue our conversation here on the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday right after this.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
45 after the hour. We're on with the economist Charles Wheelan. He's written a three-part series now, the Naked series. Part 3 is Naked Money. Teaches public policy at Dartmouth College. And Charles, we can sit here and talk about this, but the economy is not in good shape. It's not in good shape here or elsewhere. All of the quantitative easing in the world, and you say it's still crazy. So on one hand, you say, well, we don't know what would have happened. Then that's great, except that we know what did happen, which is not great, which is trillions of dollars in debt. The economy is not appreciably better. No sober person actually believes the unemployment rate is 4.9%. And I'm a sober person. The point being is the economy continues to teeter on this precipice of disaster. We're tap dancing down a razor blade, are we not?
I do believe that we're in really serious shape with all the weakness in the euro area, with China slowing down appreciably, with not a lot of growth in the United States. You kind of look around the world, Japan is in deflation, and say, where's the growth going to come from? And there aren't a lot of answers. I don't buy the premise that it wouldn't have been worse. I think coming out of 2008, it's hard to imagine that things could have been worse, but when economists look at it, in the absence of aggressive action by the Fed, there's pretty compelling evidence that it could have been worse still.
I can tell you this, Charles, and without question, growing up in and around Lansing, Michigan, I can tell you the 1970s were far worse than anything we experienced recently. I can assure you of that. I can assure you that what happened during Jimmy Carter's reign as president here, when Motor Wheel closed and John Beam closed and Fisher Body closed and people I knew lost their jobs, their houses, their cars, they lost everything. I can assure you I've been through worse times right here in Michigan than I saw the last time around. Now, maybe that's just me and maybe that's isolated. But the 1970s weren't exactly high cotton. We weren't exactly, bailing money back then, and we got through it.
Well, it's interesting because in some ways what you went through in Michigan in the 1970s is what a lot of other places in the country have been going through more recently. Michigan, because of what happened to the auto industry, was kind of on the cutting edge of the deindustrialization. That kind of became the Rust Belt. So, and we can discuss whether Michigan has ever fully recovered.
We have not.
But that's a larger issue, and it's something that monetary policy and even government really can't fully deal with.
Well, you can't do anything about that
major
because
changes in
the problem with the auto industry, when any city like Flint or Detroit or one part of our state rely on a single industry and that industry changes, well, you're going to pay the price. In West Michigan, for example, Grand Rapids, who has a series of smaller businesses, has flourished, while places like Flint and Detroit have suffered greatly from, if you will, putting all their eggs in one basket. But you would also be remiss if you didn't discuss the effects of the North American Free Trade Agreement on Michigan and the outsourcing of jobs. And you're right, people are seeing like Carrier leaving to go to Mexico, Carrier Air Conditioning and so forth, taking their plans to go to Mexico. But why? Because labor's cheaper and they can make the same product and make more money, if they leave the country. So there's a whole series of things that are going on.
Yeah, and they've all pushed against not only those industries, they've pushed against low-skilled workers. If you look at kind of the three biggest factors in the labor market, one is technology. The second, as you point out, is all kinds of globalization, both trade, outsourcing, those kinds of things. And the third is immigration, which has less impact on the auto industry. But as we look forward, the one thing to bear in mind is that high-skilled workers tend to be doing okay because they can reinvent themselves and because technology makes them more productive. Low-skilled workers tend to be made redundant by all of those forces, by technology, by outsourcing, by immigration. And that's really the place where American policy needs to fix itself, which is we've got to systematically upskill workers because this is just the beginning.
Actually, I think you're missing a key point here.
Same phenomenon.
I think you're missing a key point here, Charles, and that is the advancement of technology. Robotics have put millions of people, of what you refer to as lower-skilled people, basic laborers, out of business. I mean, the number of robots working on the General Motors assembly line today compared to 5 years ago or 25 years ago is breathtaking. So the fact of the matter is robotics and technology have displaced millions of workers here in America and elsewhere, and that's just a fact that I haven't heard you mention there.
No, when I say technology, that's it. I mean, the fact that you can replace, whether it's automated technology, voice recognition, whether it's ticket kiosks, whether it's the internet instead of travel agents, when you look across the economy and look at the jobs that are gone that people in our parents' generation did. I mean, who goes to a bank teller these days? You go to an ATM machine. So when I say technology, I absolutely mean all the kinds of automation. That's actually the number one job killer for low-skilled folks, and there's nothing that we can do about that on the policy side unless you want to become a Luddite. The only long-term policy fix is to upskill people so that technology becomes a supplement to what you're doing instead of a replacement.
You don't strike me as a Luddite, just for the record.
No,
I don't think so. Okay, so one other thing, I just want to take just a diversion down a side street here. Charles Wheelan on the line with us, economist from Dartmouth, author of Naked Economics, Naked Statistics, Naked Money, the third part of that trilogy. There's a lot of conversation right now coming from like Larry Summers and others that we should ban $100 bills in America because that would help the economy and take a bite out of crime. And I think it's abject foolishness. What do you make of it? We got about 30 seconds.
I think it probably isn't really going to get to the crux of the problem, but there you see the same thing in Europe where they're talking about banning the 500 euro note. It is the bill of choice for people who are doing illicit things, but people who do illicit things tend to be quite clever and would almost certainly work around whatever we do.
Yeah, they'd have a workaround. And banning the $100 bill, wouldn't the banks prefer to ban cash altogether? Isn't cash really the Achilles heel of the banking industry altogether? Last question.
Well, the banks may not like it. The rest of us like it quite a bit because it's anonymous and it's easy and it's the best thing for small change and tips and the like. So what the banks want, what we want, isn't necessarily the same.
Mm-hmm. But we're not friends with the president or the prime minister, you know. So that's where
I don't think we're going to ban. We're not going to ban cash anytime soon. It may slowly wither away, but I don't think we're going to ban it.
All right, good conversation, Charles Wheelan. The books are Naked Economics, Naked Statistics, Naked Money. Where can they find them, sir?
Anywhere that books are sold.
Anywhere that books are sold, for cash, by the way. Charles Wheelan, thank you very much.
Hey, great to be with you.
All right, have a great afternoon. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday. We'll be right back.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
So you wonder what is wrong with what we see and hear every day. You wonder how people can believe what they believe, and you shake your head. And I have to tell you a little story here about something I was just dealing with. You know, oftentimes during the program here, people will click on to the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page, and I'll respond to it, or I'll make reference to it. I'll make comment of it. So I'm looking at a post, a thread here. Some people talking back and forth about, you know, arguing as they often do about, you know, Democrats versus Republicans, who can win in the fall and who cannot and why. So one guy writes on there, and I've seen him write before. So Michael writes on there about, you know, Bernie Sanders and you know, he attacks Trump. And I said, well, you know, Bernie Sanders' ideas are not workable. He agrees with that. And he says, but I like his ideas. Okay. And then he goes and says, you know, that's why we need an experienced statesman. He goes on to say he likes Hillary Clinton. I say, but Hillary Clinton's are the same as Bernie's ideas. He says, I agree. And that's why those two have to be on the same ticket to work together, so that you have the experienced international negotiator with the social justice warrior. Now, let me back up. Again, during the conversation, Michael said he agrees Bernie's ideas can't work. I say Hillary's ideas are pretty much the same as Bernie's. I agree, he says, which is why they have to work together. Let me get this straight. Bernie's ideas have no chance of working. Hillary's ideas are the same as his, which mean they have no chance of working. So they have no chance of working, but I love the ideas, and that's why these two need to work together so I can vote for them. Neither one has an idea that has a chance in hell of working, and that's why I'm going to vote for them. And you wonder what's wrong with the state of affairs today? These two are, I like their ideas, but their ideas won't work. I know. That's why I'm voting for them. What? Their ideas won't work. I know. And that's why I'm voting for them. At any rate, still to come, it's frightening. Still to come today, we'll have Robin Lott here from the MET, the MET program and the MESP program, the executive director. Plus, Jeffrey Allen Ford will be here. The 2016 Genius of the Year for America, which includes both North and South America. He is autistic. He resides in East Lansing, Michigan. In April is World Autism Awareness Month, so Jeffrey will be here. He's had just a load of accomplishments and accolades. Very accomplished individual, meaning that, you know, for people that don't understand autism, we'll have a conversation about it. For those of you that do, that have been touched by autism, might be a good conversation for you to listen to. I think most of us either are directly affected or know somebody who is. You know, I think we all know somebody who is, you know, dealing with autism in one fashion or the other. So we'll get to that conversation in a minute. It's 10 minutes after the hour. Here before the break, we were talking to the economist, Charles Wheelan. And Charles Wheelan, was talking about the things that have worked and the things that haven't. And he's like, well, we don't know what would have happened if we hadn't tried quantitative easing. That's right, we don't. We don't know what would have happened if all that money had stayed in taxpayer pockets and the taxpayers had dictated where we would go. And if the banks had failed, how we would have proceeded. Well, that's true. But I think it's safe to say that, we're trillions of dollars more in debt than we would have been. And have we really accomplished anything? And my answer is I don't know. I mean, we're flirting with negative interest rates. It's already happening in Japan and Europe. It's likely to happen here in the United States. And who would put money in the bank to get less money back? Why would you put your money in the bank so that a year from now you can make a withdrawal and you're 1 or 2 or 3% less than what you put in? What would be the point of having a bank? The bank is to protect your money or grow your money, not give it back to you with less, frankly. Well, I saw this article on M Live over the weekend, and every now and then they hit a really, every now and then I'm stunned because they do something of value. And they wrote this, the headline is Flint's decline and Grand Rapids' success predicted in a 70-year-old study. In 1946, sociologist C. Wright Mills and economist Melville Ulmer concluded the fortunes of the two Michigan cities, Flint and Grand Rapids, were headed in opposite directions. 70 years later, their predictions are exactly accurate. Spot on. The researchers warned Flint was overly dependent on its one big employer, primarily General Motors, even though its workers at the time made 37% more. They made more money than the national average. The warning seemed out of place. By 1950, Flint was labeled the happiest city in Michigan. Think about that. In 1950, 65 years ago, Flint was the happiest city in Michigan and called the epicenter of the American dream. Grand Rapids, whose economy was defined by its numerous small businesses, was less flashy, but it offered its citizens more mobility and opportunities for its middle class that would help it survive tough times. So concluded the researchers in 1946. The 29-page study commissioned by a congressional subcommittee in the wake of World War II is now getting dusted off. As Grand Rapids enjoys an economic resurgence and continues to thrive, and Flint continues to struggle for decades now in the aftermath of General Motors' exit and closing of its factories. Mills and Ulmer didn't actually name Flint and Grand Rapids at their time, but their identity has recently been revealed. Coming out of the war, the question with all of these returning GIs was, what's going to provide for the higher quality of civic well-being? These towns with 1 or 2 intensive big industries, or this economic diversity that Grand Rapids has already established? Well, it turns out Grand Rapids' model is far better. The other thing is, I just had this conversation with somebody else. In effect, in Flint and Detroit and in those cities, you've had one-party rule. You have had one-party rule in those cities since, the 1950s, early 60s. The Democrats have ruled Flint and Detroit. In Grand Rapids, you've had diverse political representation across the city. And so when you become a one-party town and one-party rule, well, in this case, it has not worked very well at all. Now, has it? It just has not worked very well at all. It just seems to me, isn't it interesting, that in 1946, the demise of Flint was predicted. And the rise of Grand Rapids was also similarly predicted by looking at the economic model and the direction the cities were going. Sometimes these studies just take the test of time. This hour of the Steve Gruber Show brought to you by the Michigan 529 programs, making sure your kids and grandkids get the education they need. To learn more, go to SaveWithMI529.com. That's SaveWithMI529.com. It is Monday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
All right, welcome back to it. You hear me talk about it from time to time because I'm doing it for my kids, and you might want to consider for your kids or grandkids or for the kid down the street. It is the Michigan 529 programs, the MET program, and MESP. And here to talk more about it today, the Executive Director, Robin Lott from MET and MESP. Robin, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Steve.
How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, and you?
Doing well. Thank you so much, Robin. So how many people participate in this program?
Oh, man, we have over 200,000 people that actually participate in all of the programs, close to 300,000, so not bad.
I'd say that's pretty impressive. It's been going on for many years now. And for people that listen, this is the thing that I want to, emphasize for the folks, is how easy it is to get started today. For as little as $25, you can start planning for somebody's education, planning for their future, whether they're a newborn or they're 16 years old. It doesn't matter. How easy is it, Robin?
It's so easy. All you really need is that Social Security number of the student. Obviously, you'll need their mailing address information, and then the $25, which just requires, if you go online, it probably takes you 10 to 15 minutes at the most to enroll in either program. As long as you have that information along with your banking information, your routing number, and your account number, we take the $25 out. It's really that simple. And during certain times with MET, we actually will offer that $25 free of charge with a coupon code. So we try to make it as easy as we possibly can to get people motivated.
And there's different ways to do it. You can get it set up on it can be deducted right out of your paycheck, or you can do a pay-as-you-go thing. Now, before we get to that, though, let's just explain real quickly the difference between the MET program and the MESP program, if you will, just in simple terms, Robin.
Sure. You're basically looking at Michigan 529 programs, Michigan Education Trust being prepaid tuition. You're purchasing credit hours for tuition for the child to attend a public college in Michigan or to take a refund and go out of state. It is portable to go out of state. With MESP, think of it like a 401k investment-based program. You're putting money into an investment-based account. You're selecting among 9 investment options, one of which is a guaranteed option. But the account balance can be used for not only tuition, but can be used for room and board, books, and other expenses, and it can be used anywhere in the nation as well.
So that's an important thing you just touched on there. A lot of people think, well, if I buy into this program, gosh, and my kid wants to go somewhere out of state, I can never use that money. That's just not the truth.
That's not true. That's never been true with either program. MET's been around since 1988, and it wasn't true back then, but a lot of people bought into it and thought it was. Then we're finding out with MESP, folks are thinking the same thing. I think because the word Michigan is in it, but that just implies the base. That's our base is here in Michigan, and because you're saving in a Michigan plan, you do have a little added benefit on the tax side of things. But basically, they can be used out of state anywhere in the country, and in some cases abroad as well. It just depends on whether that university or college abroad offers federal financial aid to their students.
Yeah, and so if your kid becomes a Rhodes Scholar,
right?
Yeah,
you can still use it. You won't lose it. How about that?
Yeah, talk about expensive. I'll tell you that. That's what's concerning. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now back to the payment programs, sure. Because there's something to fit everybody's budget, is the way we like to say it. Again, $25. If you want to get started, you can make one investment $25, and that's all you ever do. Most people want to put in $25 here, or you can have it a payroll deduction if you like, but you can also have this thing where you come along from time to time and say, well, I've got some extra money this month, let me put it in here. Right. What are the different options when it comes to financing this education?
Sure, you would go right ahead and open that account with the $25. On each side of the spectrum, MET has a new pay-as-you-go option. So once you make that first purchase of 1 credit hour, you can now just make sporadic payments or contributions anytime you wish. Either you've gotten your tax refund, you want to put part of that. Maybe your child is going into kindergarten and you freed up a lot of daycare money. Great opportunities to try to put just, lump sums in there. And you now can do that with MET. You can always do that with MESP because, again, with MESP, you're putting that $25 to open it up. It's an account. You're not buying credits, but you're putting in money as you can. Now, payroll deduction is an excellent opportunity for you to do some regular savings, some disciplined savings, because the more disciplined savings you can conduct or do, obviously the more savings you'll have at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly, and you want to have as many options as possible. Now, in hearing us talk about this in the past, I think that, the best way to go in the direction that I'm going is to have one of each, because the Met program is kind of your insurance policy, like you've mentioned, where your tuition's covered. But you might want to have that covered, but you might also want to cover pizzas and, transportation, gasoline, whatever it might be. And that would be the MESP program.
Books are very expensive nowadays, too. I mean, I don't know if books cost less than $300.
Probably not.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think having a combination is a good plan.
It really is an excellent plan, and it's also an opportunity to get family members involved. So you and I could adopt a child in the neighborhood, and we could both open up an MESP and or a MET. Maybe I open the MET, you open the MESP. It's so great to have both of those, if you could, for a child. Keep in mind, as you said, MET only covers the tuition, and tuition only covers about 33 to 50% of the total cost of higher education. So your child is still going to need to either borrow money or come up with money to pay for books and room and board. Pizza's part of the board, obviously. And those other expenses that go along. Now your 529 account can be used to cover the cost of a computer, because most of these colleges are requiring it, and the law has now been changed to cover computers as a qualified higher education expense.
Well, it's almost mandatory.
All of those things. Pardon?
I say computers are almost mandatory, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like wireless campuses now, so.
Yes.
But yeah, you want to look at both, and if you save in both plans, guess what? You are entitled to 2 income tax deductions on the state of Michigan form.
So there you go, and those are some of the basics. And I'd like to direct people for more information. There are some resources for them online, Robin, that you can direct them to so they can find out everything they need to know.
Sure. Go to savewithmi529.com. And you will see a landing page that talks a little bit about all 3 programs in Michigan, and they have links to each program.
All right, Robin Lott, always a pleasure and always a wealth of education and information for education, I should say. Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Have a wonderful day.
You too. And one of the callers asked, are there penalties for some out-of-state uses? Again, I would say go to the website that Robin directed you to, answers all of your questions. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
All right, so here's a conversation you're not going to hear anywhere else. And it's an important conversation to have, and I want you to focus with me, if you will. Everybody has their challenges. And I also believe that God gave everybody a gift. Now, they may not always identify it, but everybody has a gift and everybody has their challenges. It's the way human beings are put together, in my estimation, overall of the world. Welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show on this Monday. And just letting you know, April is World Autism Awareness Month. And I want to read for you something written by our next guest, because I think it'll give you some insight and some basis for the conversation we're about to have, a foundation, if you will. I am on the autism spectrum, and I remember the frustration and hopelessness I once felt being unable to land even minimum wage jobs. So when I recently learned that 90% of young autistic adults in the United States are either unemployed or underemployed, I immediately took action. Because what I'm hearing there, work ethic has nothing to do with autism. Jeffery Allen Ford, our guest. Jeffery, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be on your show.
I'm very proud to have you here, Jeffery. You were named the 2016 Genius of the Year for America, which includes both North and South America. We will get that in a minute, but tell our listeners about your autism and how, in your estimation, it affects you in the way you, function in your day-to-day activities.
My autism affects me a great deal. I had friends over yesterday, for example, and I really like my friends, but I have to purposely, just like I'm doing now, slow my brain down in order to be understood and to appear normal. So much of my life that's social is role-playing. People wonder why don't I go out very much. It's because I don't necessarily find other people's interaction superior to just simply being alone. I also have tremendous focus. I one time memorized 1,600 pages of a book set in order to sit for the Accredited Asset Management Specialist designation. It's terrific to have that kind of focus. That's not unusual for people with Asperger's, but you can forget to eat, you can forget to drink, you can forget to sleep, and these gifts are fantastic, can actually tear you apart if you're not careful.
Now, hold on right there, Jeffrey, because you hit on something important here, and I want to share with the audience that you're a member, I believe, of about 12 or 15 different high IQ societies. Most people have heard of Mensa, so we'll just use Mensa.
Right.
So what is your IQ?
My IQ, I took the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale IQ exam, and it's 150 plus. The people who wrote the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale IQ exam believe that IQs over 150 aren't statistically meaningful or could accurately be judged.
So you're somewhere in the fraction of 1% of all people on the planet today when it comes to the IQ. Now, here's what's interesting to me, you know, and as an observer, I know some friends that have an autistic child, and I've dealt with other folks that deal with autistic children. But like I said, God gave everybody a gift, in my estimation, and his gift to you was incredible intelligence. Like you said, you memorized 1,600 words of a book set. Now, when you say you memorized, do you mean word for word every bit?
Just about 100% word for word. Not quite. I'd say maybe about 98, 99%.
And I don't mean this to be stereotypical in any way, but people then would remember back to the movie Rain Man, right, where he would see, matchsticks on the ground. He could look at them and know exactly how many are there. But there's an intelligence here that operates at a higher level in many cases, and you do that. Now, tell me about this Genius of the Year award. What is this about, and how did you become, a finalist?
Well, this is really interesting. I was already a member of 3 or 4 different high IQ groups at the time. Now I'm a member of 15. I joined the World Genius Directory in 2013, partly because I knew they had a Genius of the Year award for America, Europe, and Asia. The problem was I realized everybody has existing friendships and relationships. It would be ridiculous to think that they're going to vote for me anytime soon. What I didn't expect was how open and accepting. I'm autistic. When I go out in public, people judge me based upon how well I socialize, which makes sense. However, my relationships with the World Genius Directory have all been online. So what we do is between August, September, October, until October 31st, we have a three-month election, and they vote for who will be the Genius of the Year for America, Europe, and America. And I was absolutely amazed. I received 44 beautiful emails from people telling me that they were going to vote for me. And when I was a child, I was called names like retard, stupid, idiot, bullied all the time. I never, ever would have expected any type of acknowledgement, let alone an award like this. So I find this group to be a very open and accepting group.
Jeffrey Allan Ford, our guest here, 2016 Genius of the Year for America, which includes both North and South America. He is autistic with Asperger's syndrome. He also has an IQ north of 150 and is a member of 15 high IQ societies around the world, including Mensa, which is probably as well known as any of those organizations. For people that don't know, and before we get to our first commercial break here, Jeffrey, give me an idea. What is Asperger's syndrome, which is where you are on the autism scale?
Asperger's syndrome is a high-functioning form of autism that psychological experts now believe that Einstein, Michelangelo, Sir Isaac Newton had. And it's characterized by difficulty with social interactions, engaging in repetitive behaviors, I have horrible problems with sensory input, with bright lights, certain sounds. Shopping malls and schools are horribly disorienting for me. When you put me alone in let's say, a room by myself, I'm golden. I'm perfect. But when you put in the social interaction, the sound, and the distractions, I'm rubbish.
Now, how old are you?
I'm now 53.
You're 53 years old.
Yes.
And real quickly, do you have a day job? Is there something you do every day?
Well, I'm multiply disabled. I have 3 different heart conditions, severe restrictive lung disease, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, and I really can't physically work, which is extremely frustrating because I'm very sharp mentally, but yet my body's not conducive even to standing up for any length of time.
Yet you have your mind and you have a message. So hold that thought right there, Jeffrey, because your mind and your message are extremely important here as we discuss April being World Autism Awareness Month, and we have Jeffrey Allan Ford here, who hails from East Lansing, Michigan, and he really is an ambassador to the world about what autism is, what it isn't, and how people can understand it better. It's Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
So here's what I'd like to do. Jeffrey Allan Ford, the Genius of the Year. I want to have him back on the program because I think we're just getting started. I think it's important with so many children these days being diagnosed with autism. I want to be able to have him back and talk more about it. A fantastic conversation, but he has to focus to conversate normally, if you will. And I think he is amazing. And we're going to have him back as it is World Autism Awareness Month. And I think we've just made ourselves a new friend here on the program, Jeffrey Allan Ford. You can look him up, 2016 Genius of the Year for America. And I just, exceptional young man, exceptional individual. And we want to have him back here on the program because I think it's an important conversation with so many of us, knowing those that deal with either directly or indirectly with people with autism. So we're going to save that, if that's okay with you, because those are some of the important things we do here on the program. And he's from East Lansing, so he's a Michigan guy sharing with us. I would have thought he was a lot younger. He said he was 53. I would have thought by his voice he was 23. So it is. All right. So, we're going to transfer over now to Tim Staudt, the Dean of Sports. He's live in London today. But I want to touch base with Tim for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have the national championship game tonight, which here just a couple of weeks ago, many would have thought that Michigan State University would have been a part of. But MSU obviously had a disappointing first round, to say the least, and got knocked out by Middle Tennessee, and then Syracuse made their way all the way to the Final Four out of Michigan State's bracket. So first thing is with Vanderbilt, who beat Oklahoma by like 100 points. It was unbelievable. Vanderbilt's on fire, going to play North Carolina for the championship. Tim Staudt live from London, England. Tim Staudt, welcome back to the program.
Hi, good to talk to you, Steve. Frankly, I'm in Oxford, England at the moment as we speak, and I'm at Ladbrokes betting parlor because our son who's here says, you want to bet the game? He says, you got to see these betting parlors here. So I'm trying to decide right now for entertainment purposes, do I put $2 down on the Masters winner? Do I put $2 down on the Virginia, North Carolina winner, or the Villanova, North Carolina winner tonight? They got betting parlors all over the United Kingdom, but I hadn't really seen them in person. It's unbelievable. It's like they're like drugstores here. They're everywhere you look. So I finally came into one today to look. That's kind of cool, but the thing is, it hooks you, and I haven't placed it yet, to be honest with you, because when you called, I was still trying to get the line on Villanova, North Carolina tonight.
Well, in my understanding, you have a son who's attending Oxford, correct?
I have a son at Oxford University, and we came over to visit him, and it's an amazing experience here to visit the people here and the people that are here, the tourists that are here on spring break.
Well, my point being, is that $2 you're going to bet might be the only $2 you have left.
That's exactly right. I like Villanova to win the game tonight, to be honest with you. I just think Villanova's a team to beat. I don't even have the spread in front of me because when you called, I just walked in to look at the touch screen. You can't believe the people in here, that bet cricket and bet soccer and all. And they got it. I mean, they got everything. They got what are you going to shoot Thursday? Is the Masters going to end in a playoff or not a playoff and all that? And when I get done with you, I have to go back in there and figure out a way to lose my money.
Let me ask you this. Do they have a bet on the American election? Some of those foreign places do. Trump and Hillary Clinton and so forth. I want you to put $2 on Trump for me, and I'll spot you back when you get back.
You know what? You know what's funny too, and I just talked to a kid who's 28 years old, who's a classmate of his at Oxford, in the United Kingdom. He's a brilliant kid. He's getting married. His wife's going to medical school. She's going to be sent to Africa to study infectious diseases. And while she's there, he's working for some incredible financial firm that just transferred him to New York City for a year. So, talk to these kids about America and all that. They all talk about the election and the politics and all that. And, of course, the ISIS thing over here is a big deal as well, although they're not nearly as worried about it on the streets as I fear that they might be over here. They take it in stride. They say if you're going to live in Europe, you got to deal with this stuff and just live your life, and whatever happens, happens. That's kind of their attitude here.
What else would you do? I kind of agree with that. All right, so lay $2 on Trump for me.
You know what? Hang on. Let me just ask him here a minute because he's looking at this. Let me ask him right now because I walked outside for a moment. Let me. What do you do? Do you go place that bet? Because can you bet on the presidential election there? Gruber's asking me. He says, yeah, you can, but he doesn't have it in front of him yet. He says they'll have an over and under on when the Pope comes in here and everything else, but I don't have it yet now because we're walking down the street doing something else. I'm coming back to put my bet down on that. But yeah, he says you can do that. You can bet on the presidential election.
And there you have it. So $2 on Trump. Yeah. So it's so these betting partners then sound like a pretty interesting place, to say the least.
Well, when I was in Dublin 2 years ago, because he was in study abroad, Notre Dame over in Dublin, I went to Dublin. I couldn't believe the number of pubs that were there and the number of betting partners. But there aren't as many betting partners. But Ladbrokes every place here, which is their betting service. I mean, look, it's a big deal here. People bet this stuff inside out and backwards, and it's all digital. So you just go to the computer screen, put it up, and just go ahead and pick out what you want.
So if I'm hearing this right, though, what's your son's first name? Patrick. I mean the way I'm thinking it, I think I want to wager $2 on Patrick to be president. Notre Dame and Oxford. Can I get $2 on Patrick to win?
I'll put that down for you. He can be a write-in and all
exactly.
that. They took exams this morning. You realize to take exams here, you have to wear a suit. If you're a student here, you have to, for every exam, you have to wear a suit with a bow tie. And it poured rain, so these kids all have rain suits that you would wear on a golf course to bike to the exam at the business school, so that they don't get absolutely soaked. And you take the thing off, and then they're all in their three-piece suits. You have to wear that. To go to dinner, you have to wear a tuxedo. It's the way the world works here. It's a little. I said, man, I don't know if American college students could adjust that easily to this, let alone me and you.
Yeah, clearly I'd fit right in.
But it's quite a place. I've heard a lot about this place. These students are from all over the world here, and I've met about 9 of them from 9 different countries, all of whom speak English, of course, to get in here.
Sure.
And study. He's in finance, so, these guys are going to figure out all the financial stuff around the world. The weather's terrible, but it always is bad here in the spring.
Yes,
but there are a lot of tourists here. There are a lot of tourists here that don't fear that stuff. Getting into Heathrow, I didn't notice anything different whatsoever. That was business as usual when I got here on Friday night.
That's the most interesting report we've had overseas in a while. Tim Staudt is in Oxford, and I greatly appreciate. Okay, so $2 on Trump to win, and $2 on Patrick Staudt to win, place, or show. I'll take that.
I'll put that on for you tonight, and then I'll collect the winnings. At least on one of the two. We'll figure it out when we get back. But I'll check the odds on that.
All right, Tim. Always a pleasure.
Okay, buddy. Stay in touch.
All right, welcome back to it. So here's the thing we're going to be doing. And you know what, Alex, I was wrong. Bring that down. Bring her up. That's fine. My mistake. Because it runs 4 minutes. So that was So here's what we're going to do at this portion of the program. In hour 3, for the rest of my existence here, we're going to talk about what is great about America. We're going to talk about what is good about America because we sit here every day and listen to people put America down and blame America and take shots at America and stand on the American flag. We're done with that. Every day. To finish the Steve Gruber Show, we're going to talk about great things about America. Maybe it'll be Henry Ford. Maybe it'll be World War II. Maybe it'll be the Blue Angels or landing on the moon or just some simple story like Jeffery Allen Ford. Just great stories about America and what makes us great and the greatest nation in the history of nations. It'll be right here every day. I'll take suggestions from you, the listeners, as well. You can go to the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page and put it on there. Yeah, and the reason I play Whitney Houston from 1991, I think she is the greatest performer in the history of singing the Star Spangled Banner. It still gives me chills to hear her sing the Star Spangled Banner from Super Bowl 25. And so this is the first taste of what we're going to do here every day on the Steve Gruber Show. We're going to have a little history lesson, a little explanation, we're going to pound our chest a little bit. We're going to talk about America and how great it is and why it's great and why I'm proud to be an American. God bless America. That's what we're going to do here every day at the end of the show. Why? Because that's who we are. So here's Whitney Houston. Every day here on the program, we're going to talk about what's great about America. And I love Whitney Houston, the way that she sings that song. So your ideas are welcome at the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. I want you to come give me your ideas. What's great about America? What inspires you every day when you drive down the road? Is it neighbors helping neighbors? Is it the American flag flying? What is it? God bless America and you. It's the Steve Gruber Show.